Hi guys, it's Professor Fernandez and I'm here for part 2 of capitalization. So we went over a couple of rules last time. So if you haven't seen video 1, definitely stop this video right now, go back and look at video 1. Lots of good stuff. We went over 6 capitalization rules that you really should look at and you really should know. They're the ones that come out. They're the most common that happens in your everyday college life. Others, of course, will pop up. There's 21 capitalization rules. Please remind me during Teams meeting to tell you the story of how I know there's 21 capitalization rules and it involves me dressing up as Janet Jackson. It's a good story. It's a really good story. So we only went through 6 of them though. And one, of course, you already know is capitalizing the first word in a sentence. So you really know 7 solid capitalization rules. So please go back and watch that video. This video actually puts those things into practice. So we're going to go over a very short, hopefully short practice on capitalization. And I'll explain what is being capitalized, what isn't being capitalized, and why, and what rule we're playing with at that time. So of course, I'm going to screen share here. And hopefully I'll do this correctly. All right. Okay, here we are. So here we are with our practice here. And this is going to go over like pretty much every rule that we went through in the last video. So what we want to do, especially when we're editing a piece, whether it's doing editing exercises like we're doing here, or we're editing our own essays, what we want to do is kind of get in the editing mind frame. We want to understand that nothing on this page is sacred, right? Our goal is to find as many mistakes and challenges as we possibly can. We also want to have a focus on our editing sessions. So we know that our focus here is capitalization. So even if we see another rule that's being broken, another grammar rule that's being broken, we can't touch it because we are only focused on one thing. So you're probably wondering, why is that? It's kind of like the rule of an inch deep and a mile wide. If you're doing too many things, right? If you're doing multitasking, you think that you're actually doing something, but really you're doing a bunch of things at the same time and none of them get done as well as you would like them to be done. And you don't understand things and absorb things as well as you could have if you've only focused on one thing, right? So that's why when we're editing, when we're revising a piece, we have to go through it several times. If you read some of the comments I've made on your very first thing that you wrote for me, I said, write fast, edit or revise slow, right? So when you're writing, you really just want to put things down on paper because you can't revise something or edit something that doesn't exist. So you just want to write it on paper. Don't think about editing. Don't think about, oh, this isn't right. This is not, don't self-edit as you go. Make it as sloppy as possible. Your first draft should only be read by you because you're the only one that understands it. No one else should see a first draft. A first draft is the messiest thing on purpose because it's just dumping everything down. Revision and several revisions or several versions have to happen before you get to the part where you want to get to. So this pass right here is just the capitalization pass. So that's why I'm taking time to explain exactly what we're doing and how revision and editing works. Okay, so let's read first sentence, okay? We learned about Emperor Constantine when we studied Rome in social studies. Okay, so let's do process of elimination here. We have 2 things that are capitalized already, Constantine and social studies. Now, Should Constantine be capitalized? Absolutely. It is a proper noun. That is somebody's actual name, right? So that stays. Social studies, should it stay? Absolutely, it should stay, because if you remember correctly, if you were talking about a subject, it's capitalized. So those two things stay. So what other things are here? Are there things like proper names and locations? Are there things like titles? Are there things like cardinal rule or cardinal directions? Let's look at these words here. Emperor Constantine. Well, this looks like a title to me, right? Because Constantine's job is to like rule everything. So he's an emperor. Bam, that's capitalized. And we should, and actually I should really use the capitalization. I should use the capitalization marks here. Okay, so the capitalization marks are three little lines under the letter. That means it needs to be capitalized. Do we have another word here that needs to be capitalized? Absolutely. Rome needs to be capitalized because it's actually an actual place. That's the name of an actual city, Rome. So we have two things capitalized in this first sentence, emperor and Rome. Everything else is fine. Let's move on to sentence 2. I waved at Police Chief Wilson as she rode by in the parade. Now, do we have a title here? We do. Wilson. She's the police chief. And we're using her position, her title as a thing, right? We're using her position as a title. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Police Chief Wilson. Vice President Professor Fernandez, right? So you definitely want to capitalize that title. Next, Miss O'Hara, who used to be our math teacher, is now running for mayor. Now, tricky, tricky, tricky. You know why it's tricky? Because I ran this through Grammarly before here, and Grammarly got this wrong. So here's another example of you can't always trust Grammarly. Grammarly is really good, but it's not 100%. So, math teacher. Are we talking about math the subject? Yes, we are. So we're gonna leave that up there. And so the math teacher, Miss O'Hara, bless her heart, is running for mayor. Oh, we're using mayor as a title here. We are not, we're using it as a position. So this, put a slash to that, is lowercase. There you go. By the way, my editing marks, I'm really testing. It's been a while since I've used these editing marks, and I'm just like, oh, I can't believe I still remember these. Fun. All right. Every spring we drive to North Dakota to visit my cousins in Fargo. And every winter we drive south to Florida to visit my grandparents in Miami. Woo, there's lots going on here. Okay. So we're talking about cardinal directions, and we are talking about seasons of the year, right? Calendar stuff. So what did we learn about fall, summer, winter, spring, and autumn? We know that they are not capitalized. Small s. Now, what did we learn about cardinal directions? They are not capitalized except for two instances. One, talking about a region, or two, it's the actual name of a thing. North Dakota is an actual state. For real, Google it, look it up. So North Dakota, the N in North Dakota is capitalized. Fargo, of course, is capitalized because that's the name of an actual city in Fargo. Don't believe me? Look that one up. There's a whole like movie and TV show about it. And then every winter is winter capitalized. No, it is not, because we learned from doing this for the word spring in the line before that seasons are not capitalized. We drive south to Florida to visit my grandparents in Miami. Now, this is tricky. This is very tricky because Grammarly didn't catch this one either. It didn't catch it, and even surprised me that it didn't catch it, so much so that I had to look up the rule again. And this is not capitalized because it's talking about the drive south, like it's giving south as a cardinal direction, not saying that they drove to the south to Florida. See how there's a difference? So what makes this incorrect, or what would have made this correct and allowing the S to be capitalized, is if the sentence said, and every winter we drove to the south to Florida, comma, to Florida. But it isn't. It's talking about the direction of south, not the region of the country, which is known as the South. So not capitalized. Yes. And of course, the last thing that needs to be capitalized here is Miami, because Miami is an actual city in the US and in Florida. So we need to capitalize this. 1, 2, 3, boom. And that's how we edit that. That one was a little tricky. I like that one. It flexed our muscles. Okay, next one. When the bitter cold winds blew in from the north, I knew it was the beginning of winter, even though the calendar said it was still fall. Whew. We're still doing cardinal directions here, and we're doing seasons on the calendar. So let's look at the first thing. Let's look at when the bitter cold winds blew in from the north. Okay, we just talked about this. We're talking about a region, right? We're not talking about the direction. We're not talking that the winds blew north. They're from the north, which means that this is capitalized, because there are two reasons to capitalize a cardinal direction. One is in the name of a state, North Dakota, South Dakota, North Carolina, South Carolina, those type of things. West Virginia is another one. And we capitalize it if it is talking about a region, an area. The north is a region. So that is capitalized. Next section, I knew it was the beginning of winter. Is winter capitalized? Remember the rule for seasons. Do we ever capitalize seasons? We never capitalize seasons unless it's the beginning of a sentence. So boom, small w. There you go. Now, fall. Do we capitalize fall? Of course we don't. We leave it alone. We just talked about this, right? It's a season. We never capitalize it. Okay, moving on. She served Belgian waffles and Canadian bacon for breakfast. First of all, that sounds delicious. Secondly, we have some interesting things here. Interesting things. What we have here are proper nouns and adjectives, right? So the actual name of those waffles is Belgian, right? So Belgian is capitalized. The actual name of that bacon, which actually isn't really bacon, it's really just a big slice of ham, really, is Canadian. So it's Belgian waffles, Canadian bacon. Why not waffles? Why not bacon capitalized? Because it is the name of those waffles isn't Belgian waffles. It's called Belgian. What type of waffles are they? They're Belgian. What type of bacon is it? It's Canadian. So they're not capitalized. They're not part of the proper name. It's weird. It's strange. Again, go into your time machine and talk to originators of the English language. I personally would capitalize them, but no, they are not capitalized. All right, the famous recipe called for Idaho potatoes and Swiss cheese. Oh, this one's gonna make you mad. This one's gonna make you mad, I think. Yeah, it made me mad. So let's look at it. Okay, the famous recipe called for Idaho potatoes. Idaho is capitalized because that's the name of the state. But Swiss cheese is actually both capitalized. I don't know why. I do know why. That's the actual proper name of the cheese. The actual name of that type of cheese is called Swiss cheese, not Swiss. The cheese isn't from Switzerland. It's just called Swiss cheese. That's why. Time machine. Okay. My sisters and I all have January birthdays. This should be really easy. There's a month here, and that month is always capitalized. Boom. Boom, 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 boom. All right. Here we have it. Here we have done our editing. Did we see other grammar stuff? There may have been one or two other grammar stuff, or maybe one or two other things that probably should be reworded a little differently. But we were only looking for capitalization, right? So we only focused on capitalization, and we went through each one of these to make sure that things were capitalized. And one thing that I want you to walk away with this is that whenever we capitalize something or not capitalize something, we have to know why or why not we're doing it. Of course, these were tricky. Actually, just those two. These two were tricky, right? And so it's one of these things that if you're writing about Belgian waffles in your essay and you capitalize Belgian waffles, I'm gonna mark it, of course, because I have to mark it, but I'm not gonna blame you for capitalizing Belgian waffles because it just seems like you would kind of capitalize Belgian waffles, right? And you would capitalize Canadian bacon. It's just a weird thing. So sometimes like things have the proper noun to it, right? Like Swiss cheese is the actual name, but these are adjectives. Belgian is describing the waffle, Canadian is describing the bacon. So the adjectives are capitalized, but not the thing that they are describing, right? So these two are really tricky. And of course, when you do that, it's when you are going through and you are editing a piece, you have to ask yourself, am I capitalizing this because it is an adjective or a proper noun? And I think a really good way of doing that is actually just looking it up. Like literally go to dictionary.com or open up a dictionary for us old folks who actually buy dictionaries still, and just look it up. How is Swiss cheese being written in the dictionary? And then you'll see how it's being written. Or how is Belgian waffles being written in the dictionary? And then you'll see it being capitalized or not capitalized, or how it's being capitalized. So that's one way to get through that. So in other ways, for example, titles and names of cities and cardinal directions and all these other wonderful rules, it's important that when you go through and you edit and you capitalize, if you choose to capitalize or not capitalize something, that you understand what rule it is, because sometimes you just can't go by feeling. So do that with kind of the rest of the things that you're doing, right? So if you're writing something and you're putting a period there, or if you're putting a comma there, why are you putting a comma there? Do not say because you're naturally pausing and this is where you take a breath, because that rule is wrong. Like it's wrong like 90% of the time. Like don't use that. But are you putting a comma there because it's an introductory phrase to a sentence? Is it adding additional information to the sentence? So, and those are comma rules that we will talk about later on, if we haven't already in the course. So whenever you're editing, ask yourself, what rule is being used here? And if you don't know, go look it up. And if you can't find the rule legit, and you really looked for it, not just like you did a Google search and you couldn't find it, but you really like looked at like reference things like your Little Seagull Handbook or any like additional grammar books or grammar stuff that I give you. If you legit can't find it there and you ask, right? So you look for it, you Google it, you look for the reference of it, in like your grammar book and then you ask, then boom, do the thing, right? So it's all about just asking questions, which is why I stress asking questions so much in the course. It's about asking questions and trying to find the answers to the questions on your own before you come to me. Because if I know the answers there, I'm literally going to say, that's in the Little Seagull Handbook. I know it's there because I just saw it. Go back and look for it, right? But if it's not there and you can't find it, then ask me, hey, I'm not sure if this is capitalized. My gut says yes, or my gut says no. I want to double check before I put it in my paper. Then we'll talk about it. Okay. So that's how you learn. And that's how you learn for everything. All right. I'm done lecturing you. Have a fantastic day or night or whatever it is that you're doing. Let me know if you have any questions. Comment below if you're on YouTube, and I will see you guys later.